It's fair to say that the Mini Cooper S R56 has a mixed reputation. To some, it's just a glorified fashion trinket, a car for wannabe estate agents and stay-at-home mums. But for others, it's an entry-level hut hatch and a go-kart for the road. Well, I've owned one for 2 years, and I can say that there's great parts and there's terrible parts. So here are 5 things I hate about my Mini Cooper S R56. So the first problem that I want to talk about is the engine. It's just not sexy. It's actually not a BMW engine or a Mini engine. It's a Peugeot engine. And I might be a snob, but I don't really like that. It sounds incredibly gruff when you start it up cold. Outside of the sort of turbo power band, there isn't much torque. So if you go for overtaking someone below, let's say 3,000 RPM, you're just not going to make it. It's a bit unimpressive. I'm going to move on to the reliability later, but again, it just doesn't sound very well put together or very sophisticated. And I think when you're paying the money for a Cooper S, you want a more like sophisticated power plant. So leading on swiftly and smoothly from the engine, we have reliability. Now, if you go to forums online, this is kind of what's going to crop up the most. There are some absolute horror stories. Now, I'm not going to go into those because I haven't experienced a lot of them. So do your due diligence and research. People talk about head gasket problems. I haven't personally had that. This is quite a low mileage car. It's been looked after quite nicely. But what I have had immediately was a timing chain issue. So this is probably the most common issue with these Minis. BMW, like a lot of BMWs, supply incredibly brittle plastic timing chain guides, and they snap off and actually go into the engine itself, which is, as you can imagine, pretty disastrous. You'll notice it straight away because there'll be a horrible rattle on startup, and if the problem is severe, it's going to continue to rattle no matter how warm the engine is. So get that sorted out ASAP. I got it done quite cheaply, literally for like a couple of £100, and it sorted the problem out completely. I actually bought this car at 20,000 miles and it already had like a complete disintegration of the timing chain guide. So don't think this is some high mileage horror story. It can happen from the word go, which is scary. So make sure it's either been done recently or do it yourself. It's not worth the hassle of an engine blowing up because you haven't spent £200. Don't be a cheapskate. So another reliability related issue with these Minis is that they absolutely drink oil, which is ridiculous considering it's a 1.6 litre Peugeot engine, but don't we love it? So some people say check your oil every time you fill up with fuel. I say as people have no lives, you need to get girlfriends, but do check it at least every 500 to 1,000 miles. That's kind of what I've done, and I've actually been fine. But do be aware of that. The problem is, when you do go to check the oil, BMW, in their infinite Munich wisdom, have decided to basically make plastic in the same colour as oil. So even mechanics can't work out how much oil the car has. So it makes you look a bit of a dipstick when you use the dipstick, which isn't brilliant. So just another quick one before you jump down my throats. Minis also chew through coolant like a bastard. So make sure you're checking that regularly. Obviously you've got a very clear min-max there, unlike the dipstick, so that's good. But again, just the takeaway here is that you're buying a £170 hatchback, but it has the characteristics of a race car. It literally just chews every bit of liquid in a car. So I've already talked about how this car has a massive thirst, and that includes fuel. So for this, you're looking at between 35 to 38 miles to the gallon if you're driving enthusiastically down British B roads, which I tend to do. The highest I've ever got it is about 44 miles to gallon, and I was doing an incredibly long journey just to motorways on cruise control, about 60, 70. So the trip sort of managed to sort itself out, but you're never going to get that unless you're commuting long distances. So bear that in mind, because you're not getting much performance for your money, but at the pumps, you're going to get completely stung. So another thing that I hate about my Mini Cooper S is ride quality, especially on these standard alloys that are pretty huge. The problem is it's just brittle. Like on normal British roads that are sort of uneven, you've got loads of potholes, it's pretty horrendous, especially when you're going through a bend. So if you're going over a roundabout, for example, and there's a rut in the road, the alloys are so big that the entire steering rack kind of locks up and it essentially locks the steering like that. So it's just not very nice. On really smooth roads, it's fantastic. It's a cliche, but it does ride like a go-kart. It's amazing. But on normal roads, it will turn your pelvis to dust. It's horrid. So the final thing that I hate about my Mini Cooper S is that it's not really hardcore enough. You know, all the flaws that I've just listed are fine if you've got like a John Cooper Works, you've got an M5, you've got something more hardcore. But with this, it's just a Mini Cooper S. It's an everyday shopping car that's a bit faster than the rest. And yet it rides like a race car, it drinks fuel like a race car, and it's unreliable. Like, where's the upside? And it's not a weekend toy. It's not something you can just garage and then take out on a Sunday drive to the pub. It's not that sort of car, it's a daily. And for a daily, you want it to be multi-purpose, you want it to be practical. I'm sorry, but this just isn't. So there are a fair few flaws to this Mini Cooper S, but don't get me wrong, I feel actually quite bad slagging it off like I have. You know, as long as you walk in with your eyes wide open and you accept these are the problems, then you have a fantastic time with it. On the wrong road, it can drive you insane, but on the right road, it's utterly brilliant. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and keep following us for more interesting, quirky, and annoying car content. Toodle pip.